From prisoner to prince, from forgotten to fruitful, God's faithfulness exceeds anything that we could ever imagine. Welcome back to Come Listen With Me. I'm Ricky Black, aka Elder Eleazar, and this is our daily reading for Saturday, March 14th of our ongoing 2026 Come Follow Me study of the Old Testament. And before we start, let's begin with a quick prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank thee for this day and for the lesson that thy timeline is always better than ours. As we read about Joseph's elevation and the meaning of his sons' names, help us to trust that thou canst make us forget our hardships and make us fruitful in the land of our affliction. May we see thy hand in our own lives as Joseph saw it in his. And we say these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, we have a little to read, a lot to ponder, and a bit to discuss. So let's jump right into it. So today we're going to be reading the last half of chapter 41. It's going to wrap up our reading for this week. And the focus in this section is all about, that sort of conclusion of a journey, right? From prisoner to prince, right? God's faithfulness to people no matter what the course they're on, right? So, and Joseph's rise to become second only to Pharaoh. He's going to save Egypt and other surrounding nations from famine and bless his family. And God's promises to his great-grandfather Abraham are going to continue, right? Because of everything that Joseph went through, the preparation coming to this day when the famine finally hits. So it's a great conclusion to this section of the story. And since we want to read with intention to draw as much out of the scripture as we can, a couple of questions to keep in mind. So Joseph names his sons Manasseh and Ephraim. So what do these names reveal about Joseph's perspective on his trials? And how does Joseph's story demonstrate that God's timeline and purposes are often different from and better than our own expectations? And looking back over the whole week's reading, what principles about trusting God through trials have stood out the most to you? So Genesis chapter 41. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand and arrayed him in vestitures of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zophnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 70th years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and he laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. For God, he said, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim. For God hath caused me to be faithful in the land of my affliction. And 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth began to come according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph. What he saith you to you do. And famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because the famine was so sore in all the lands. And that's our reading. So from prisoner to prince in a single day, right? This back half of Genesis, these verses 37 to 57, it's a dramatic reversal of everything that Joseph's been kind of dealing with, right? Pharaoh doesn't just acknowledge Joseph's interpretation. He elevates him immediately, right? A signet ring, a gold chain, fine linen robes, Pharaoh's second chariot. Joseph becomes second only to the Pharaoh himself, governor over all Egypt. And at 30 years old, 13 years after being sold into slavery, Joseph stands at the pinnacle of earthly power. But notice what happens in verse 51 and 52. Joseph names his sons, and the names tell us about his spiritual status, right? Manasseh, God has made me forget all my hardships and all my father's house. Ephraim, God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. So they're not names out of bitterness, right? They're names of redemption, thankfulness. Joseph isn't saying, well, I've suppressed my trauma, right? He's saying, God healed me to the point where the pain doesn't define me anymore, right? He's not saying I've escaped suffering. He's saying God made me fruitful in the land of my affliction, not after it, in it. So this is, theology of the entire Joseph narrative, is that God doesn't just rescue us from our trials. He uses those trials themselves as the soil that are going to bear good fruits, right? Some amazing miracles. And then finally, we see that the famine comes exactly as predicted. But hey, Egypt's prepared, thanks to Joseph. The surrounding nations, they are not. And people from all the countries come to Joseph to buy grain, setting up a dramatic reunion with his brothers that's going to be coming in the next chapters that we're going to read through next week. I can't help but feel like there's some really good other messages in here as well, right? Like there were 7 years of plenty. So you know what happened in the other nations? Everyone is living high on the hog. They were living the fat life, right? Really enjoying these years of plenty, and then they weren't prepared for the years to come. So there's probably some other messages about preparedness in there as well. But as for Joseph and his journey and, the really direct message, just think about this. If Joseph hadn't been sold into slavery, he would not have been in Egypt. If he hadn't been in Potiphar's house, he wouldn't have gone to prison. And if he hadn't been in prison, he wouldn't have met the cupbearer. If the cupbearer hadn't forgotten him for 2 years, he wouldn't have been in the exact position and place that Pharaoh needed him at the time that he needed him. So every piece of the suffering was necessary for the salvation. That 17-year-old boy who dreamed of his brother's sheaves bowing down, well, those dreams are about to come true. And not because Joseph manipulated or forced them, because God orchestrated them through the most unlikely path imaginable. And if you're in the middle of your story right now, if you can't see how your trials could possibly lead anywhere good, I just want you to hold on to Joseph's testimony. God can make you fruitful in the land of your affliction. He can turn your pit into preparation and your prison into correct positioning. The Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord is always with you as well. And with that, we've completed our week 11 reading together, right? From Joseph dreams in chapter 37 to his throne in chapter 41. And we've witnessed one of Scripture's more powerful testimonies to divine faithfulness through suffering. You've made it through the pit, betrayal, the temptation, prison, the 2-year wait, and you finally got to see the palace. So I'm proud of you for showing up this week, for wrestling with the hard stuff in these chapters, starting in 38, for sitting with Joseph in the prison cell, for trusting that God's timing is better than ours. And, well, tomorrow we'll be back with the Week 12 Sunday preview. And I've got some exciting things to share with you on this one. We're going to be dropping, we're also going to be dropping a brand new song for Week 12, and you're going to like it. You really want to hear this one. And this new thing that we're going to be announcing, so we're going to do in Week 12, I think it's going to really enhance your whole Come Follow Me experience. I think you're going to love it. And if it works out, it'll be something new we'll just keep doing. And it's all about creating more community around this, right? Which is going to be awesome. So make sure you subscribe. The notification bell is turned on because you don't want to miss it. And it's also going to be how you're going to be notified when all the daily readings hit too. So rest well tonight, celebrate what we learned this week, and get ready because next week, the Joseph story gets even more intense when the brothers show up in Egypt, hungry and desperate, and they don't even know that the brother they betrayed is now the one who holds their survival in his hands. So thanks for being here. Thanks for going with me on this whole trek this week. And I appreciate you. And as always, I just want to say thank you for spending some of your precious time to come listen.